Is
What are you
this
gonna
some
do with
kind
that
of
relic?
joke?
That
Gunnery
belongs in a
Sergeant Blake
museum, old man.
Rodriguez's voice cracked across range
Look at
400 like a
this.
rifle shot. The 32-year-old Marine wasn't staring at the heat-shimmering targets 1,300 meters downrange at 29 Palms. His steel-gray eyes were locked on the old man standing quietly behind the shooting benches, holding what looked like a museum piece from another war. The Mojave Desert sun blazed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the precision rifle range, where some of the Corps' most elite snipers had gathered for advanced long-range training. These weren't ordinary Marines. They were scout snipers, apex predators of Marine marksmanship, men equipped with pristine M40A6 rifles worth more than most cars, and cutting-edge optics with digital ballistic computers. At 79 years old, Harold Hank Morrison looked exactly like his base identification claimed, the Groundskeeper. His weathered hands, marked with liver spots and old scars, gripped an ancient M40A1 rifle that belonged in the Smithsonian. The walnut stock showed decades of honest wear, rubbed smooth by countless hands. The barrel's bluing had faded to gunmetal gray, and the scope mounted on top looked like something salvaged from the Vietnam era. His clothing matched his humble station, a faded red work shirt that had survived more wash cycles than most Marines had deployments, well-worn blue jeans with grass stains on the knees, and a simple baseball cap pulled low over eyes that had seen too much. "Sir, this is a restricted training area," Rodriguez continued, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate obedience. "Active duty personnel only. You need to return to your maintenance duties immediately." Morrison didn't respond right away. He stood there with the infinite patience of someone who had learned that most storms passed if you waited them out. His pale blue eyes, sharp despite his age, took in the young Marines with their pristine equipment and aggressive postures. He recognized the type. He had been exactly where they were, though it felt like several lifetimes ago. "I have authorization to be here, Gunnery Sergeant," Morrison finally spoke, his voice carrying a calm authority that made several Marines pause their equipment checks. "Range control cleared me for this time slot." Rodriguez's laugh contained no humor whatsoever. "Authorization? Sir, with all due respect, you're holding a rifle that went out of service before some of my Marines were born. This is advanced sniper training, not a historical demonstration." Morrison's expression remained unchanged, but something shifted in his posture. The slight slouch of an elderly maintenance worker straightened into something that looked suspiciously like military bearing. Lance Corporal David Martinez, the youngest Marine on the line at 21, found himself studying the old man more carefully. There was something about Morrison's hands on that rifle, a familiarity that suggested muscle memory developed over years, not casual handling. "Gunny," Martinez said hesitantly, "what if he actually knows what he's doing?" Rodriguez spun to face him, expression thunderous. "Martinez, are you questioning my judgment? This old man is holding a rifle that belongs in a museum, wearing work clothes, and claiming he can compete with Marine scout snipers." Morrison's expression remained unchanged, but something shifted in his posture. The slight slouch of an elderly maintenance worker straightened into something that looked suspiciously like military bearing. Lance Corporal David Martinez, the youngest Marine on the line at 21, found himself studying the old man more carefully. There was something about Morrison's hands on that rifle, a familiarity that suggested muscle memory developed over years, not casual handling. "Gunny," Martinez said hesitantly, "what if he actually knows what he's doing?" Rodriguez spun to face him, expression thunderous. "Martinez, are you questioning my judgment? This old man is holding a rifle that belongs in a museum, wearing work clothes, and claiming he can compete with Marine scout snipers." Morrison watched the exchange with the same patient expression he had maintained since arriving. He understood these young Marines were protecting their standards and their reputation. What concerned him was their assumption that age automatically equaled incompetence. "Gunnery Sergeant," Morrison said, his voice still calm but carrying a weight that made the Marines pause. "I understand your position. These young Marines have trained hard and earned the right to be here. I respect that commitment." Rodriguez nodded, thinking the old man was finally seeing reason. "However," Morrison continued, "I believe there might be a fundamental misunderstanding about who I am and why I'm here." Rodriguez's face reddened with mounting frustration. "Sir, I don't care who you think you are. This is Marine Corps training, and you're clearly not a Marine." Morrison's eyes hardened slightly, like ice forming over deep water. "Son, I think you might want to reconsider that statement very carefully." The tension on the firing line became thick enough to cut with a crowbar. Rodriguez was acutely aware of his audience, his determination to assert authority only intensifying. "Sir, this is your final opportunity to leave voluntarily," Rodriguez announced, his voice carrying across the range. Staff Sergeant Chen found himself increasingly uncomfortable with the developing situation. Something about Morrison's unconscious military bearing suggested experience that went far beyond weekend hobby shooting. Morrison's mind suddenly drifted to another time, another place entirely. The California desert faded away, replaced by the suffocating humidity of a Vietnam jungle. He wasn't 79 anymore. He was 22, lying motionless behind this very same M40A1 rifle. His eye pressed to the scope as he searched methodically for movement in the dense triple canopy below. The year was 1969, and Staff Sergeant Harold Morrison was operating with the 1st Marine Division in the notorious A. Shaw Valley. His spotter, Corporal Jimmy Williams from rural Georgia, lay motionless beside him with high-powered binoculars. "Movement, 11 o'clock, approximately 1,200 meters," Williams whispered, his voice barely audible even at close range. Morrison adjusted his position with practiced precision, settling the rifle more firmly into his shoulder. Through his scope's magnification, he could distinguish individual figures moving with tactical discipline through the undergrowth below. Enemy soldiers, well armed and moving with careful coordination. Morrison began his mental calculations with methodical precision that had kept him alive through 2 previous tours. Distance, 1,200 meters. Wind, variable but generally light, shifting unpredictably as thermal currents rose from the heated jungle floor. Humidity, oppressive and thick enough to measurably affect bullet trajectory. Target, moving intermittently, partially concealed by dense vegetation. He had one clear shot to eliminate the immediate threat before the enemy soldiers could establish their prepared ambush position. The shot, when it came, was absolutely perfect. The .308 Winchester round traveled 1,200 meters in just over a second, striking the enemy point man's center mass and dropping him instantly. Williams looked at Morrison with genuine awe. "Jesus, Hank, I've never seen precision shooting like that." Back on the California range, Morrison's eyes slowly refocused on the young Marines surrounding him. "Wind rolls off that western berm," Morrison said softly, his voice carrying quiet authority. "It shears at 800 meters, then pools in the bowl by the white rock. You're seeing right to left through your scopes, but the bullet will ride a return current." Chen's head snapped around. That observation matched his Kestrel readings exactly. Rodriguez felt his authority wavering as Marines watched Morrison demonstrate knowledge their computers had just confirmed. "Son," Morrison said again, his voice now carrying quiet authority that made nearby Marines stop their activities and listen carefully. "I've been shooting this specific rifle considerably longer than you've been alive. I know her capabilities and exactly what she can accomplish at 1,300 meters under these precise conditions." Rodriguez's face flushed bright red with mounting frustration and embarrassment at being lectured by an elderly civilian in front of his Marines.
Sir, I don't care how long you've been shooting recreationally on weekends. This is Marine Corps precision marksmanship training, not some civilian target shooting club. Morrison's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Gunnery Sergeant, you're making assumptions about my background and experience that you might want to reconsider very carefully before this situation escalates beyond what either of us wants to deal with. The confrontation had reached what appeared to be an absolute stalemate when Lance Corporal Martinez made a decision that would fundamentally change everything. "Gunny," Martinez said carefully, "what if I contact range control directly, just to verify his authorization and settle this officially?" Rodriguez nodded curtly, thinking this would finally resolve the situation in his favor. "Outstanding idea, Martinez. Let's handle this through proper channels." Martinez walked purposefully toward the range communications equipment, but instead of calling range control immediately, he decided to contact his platoon sergeant first. Master Sergeant Carlos Valdez had been stationed at 29 Palms longer than anyone Martinez knew, and would definitely be aware of any special circumstances they might have missed. "Master Sergeant, this is Martinez at Range 7, he said when Valdez answered on the first ring. "We have a developing situation with an elderly civilian claiming authorization to shoot. Says his name is Harold Morrison." There was an unusually long pause on the other end of the line, so long that Martinez wondered if the connection had been lost. When Master Sergeant Valdez finally spoke again, his voice carried a tension that Martinez had never heard before. "Martinez, did you say Harold Morrison?" The name seemed to hang in the air like a live grenade with the pin pulled. "Yes, Master Sergeant, elderly gentleman, probably late 70s, carrying what appears to be an original M40A1 from the Vietnam era. Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez believes he's confused about his location." The silence on the other end stretched for what felt like an eternity. "Sweet Mother of God," Valdez said, and Martinez could hear papers rustling frantically in the background. "Martinez, listen to me very carefully and do exactly what I tell you. Do not allow anyone to lay a single hand on Harold Morrison. Do you understand me completely? Not a single finger on that man." Martinez felt his stomach drop into his boots. In 4 years of knowing Master Sergeant Valdez, he had never heard him sound genuinely panicked about anything. The man had served in Iraq and Afghanistan, had seen combat, had dealt with every conceivable crisis that could occur on a Marine base. Nothing rattled him. Nothing except, apparently, the name Harold Morrison. Before Valdez could explain further, they all heard the unmistakable sound of multiple vehicles approaching at high speed across the desert. Heavy engines, moving fast, coming up the access road toward their isolated range. The distinctive whine of turbocharged diesel engines pushed to their absolute limits, creating dust clouds visible from miles away. Rodriguez turned to see a convoy of 3 black Humvees racing toward their position, emergency lights flashing. Morrison remained exactly where he had been standing throughout the entire confrontation, patient and dignified, still holding the ancient rifle. But something subtle in his expression had changed slightly. There was the faintest suggestion of a knowing smile. The first Humvee braked hard near the firing line, and Master Sergeant Valdez emerged quickly, followed by several other senior NCOs that Martinez didn't recognize. But everyone's attention immediately focused on the second vehicle, where a full colonel was climbing out with an expression that could have frozen the desert air solid. Rodriguez felt his mouth go completely dry as he realized the true magnitude of what was unfolding. Colonels didn't personally respond to simple range disputes with civilians. The colonel walked directly toward Morrison, completely ignoring Rodriguez and the other Marines. When he reached a position 10 feet away, he stopped abruptly and came to rigid attention, rendering the sharpest, most precise salute that anyone present had ever witnessed in their entire military careers. "Master Gunnery Sergeant Harold Morrison, United States Marine Corps, retired," the colonel said, his voice booming across the suddenly silent range. "Sir, on behalf of the Marine Corps, I apologize for the disrespect shown to you here today." Morrison slowly returned the salute, movement still precise despite his age. "Colonel, no apology necessary. These Marines were doing their job." The colonel held his salute for 5 full seconds before dropping his hand. He then turned to face the crowd of stunned Marines. "Marines, allow me to introduce Master Guns Morrison. He is a Medal of Honor recipient, Navy Cross recipient, and Silver Star recipient. He served 3 tours in Vietnam as a scout sniper with the 1st Marine Division, credited with over 150 confirmed kills at extreme range." Rodriguez felt his knees go weak. Medal of Honor, Navy Cross. He was looking at one of the most decorated Marines in Corps history. The colonel continued, his voice carrying across the range. "Master Guns Morrison's call sign in Vietnam was Ghost 6, and enemy forces had a name for him. They called him the Silent Death because his precision was so legendary they thought he was supernatural." Morrison shifted uncomfortably, never comfortable with praise. "Master Guns," the colonel said, "would you be willing to demonstrate why you earned that legendary reputation? I think these young Marines could benefit from seeing real precision marksmanship." Morrison nodded quietly and moved to an open shooting position. He laid his old rucksack on the concrete, rested the battered M40A1 across it, and settled behind the rifle with movements that spoke of decades of muscle memory. "Winds rolling left off the western rocks," Morrison said softly, his voice carrying the authority of absolute knowledge. "Thermal inversion at 800 meters, then it pulls and reverses. Call it half value left through the first thermal, full right at the bowl." He made 3 clicks of adjustment, breathed deeply, and let the desert settle in his lungs. The shot, when it came, cracked across the range like thunder. 2.5 seconds later, the unmistakable ring of copper on steel floated back from the 1,300-meter target. Perfect center hit. Rodriguez stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "Master Guns Morrison, I was completely out of line. I apologize." Morrison gave him a tired but genuine smile. "Son, you were protecting your Marines in your range. That's exactly what a good NCO should do." The colonel nodded approvingly. "For the next week, Master Guns Morrison will conduct advanced marksmanship training with this platoon. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, you will assist and learn." As the sun began its descent toward the western mountains, Morrison shouldered the ancient rifle with the same quiet dignity he had carried all day.